Hey, welcome back, 45L, The Littlest Refugee by Anh Do and Suzanne Do, illustrated by Bruce Watley. Looks like a bit of a storm happening there, but the little kid on the front looks pretty happy, doesn't he? Yeah, let's have a look. Not much happening there. Okay. I was born in a faraway country called Vietnam. It is a crazy place. Strange food, snakes in bottles, 5 people squashed onto the back of one little motorbike. My mum and dad were very poor, so we lived with mum's family. Lots of them. There were 14 people living in a tiny 3-room house. Even though we were poor and the house was crowded, I was happy because there was always lots of people to play with. Who can relate to that, yeah? I didn't know there was a war going on. Outside our house, in the jungles and in the villages of Vietnam, many people were dying. Lots of them were soldiers, but some were mothers and fathers, and some were even children. My father and many of my uncles were in the war fighting alongside the Australian and American soldiers. After the war ended, their lives were in great danger because they were on the losing side. My family decided to escape to another country. From now on, we would be refugees. I'd like someone to find out what refugees means, give us a definition and post it on Seesaw, please. Our family, together with some neighbours and friends, bought an old wooden fishing boat that stank of fish. Very early one morning, when it was still dark, we crept out to our boat, 40 people crammed on board. At first, the sun beat down on us, and then luckily the clouds came and gave us shade. But then the sky turned black and an angry storm arrived. Giant waves crashed down on our little boat. I was terrified, but my mum hugged me tight and told me, "Everything will be okay. Don't worry, it will be okay." Finally, the storm passed and the sun came out again. Mum and Dad stood together looking at all the food and water that had been ruined by the sea. "At least we are still alive," said Mum, but we were hungry and thirsty. Look at that, they don't look very happy, do they? There's maybe that's for catching rainwater, those pots perhaps, but they're in a bit of a tough spot. The next morning, we awoke to the sound of my uncle shouting, "A boat! I can see a boat!" A fishing vessel was approaching. It pulled up alongside us and a fisherman jumped aboard our boat. "Sit down, all of you," the leader shouted, waving a gun. That would be very, very frightening. So we're going to leave it there today, okay, and we're going to unpack what's happened so far that we might think is a significant event that may have shaped the decisions of Anh Do, yeah? Hang on, I've got to spin the camera. And I've got to tilt the camera. There we go. Let's have a look here. Whoop, I'm up. Okay, so we've got an anchor chart up on the whiteboard, okay? Biographers usually include the factors that influence a person's life. Title and subject of the book, we're going to add to this during the week, yeah? Who or what influenced the subject? How was the subject influenced, okay? So the title is what? The Littlest Refugee. Yeah? Little Refugee. Sorry, had to double check. The Little Refugee. Okay? The story of Anh Do. So who or what influenced the subject? What do we think about that? Who could that be? So, if we read through the book, let's have a look here. I was born in Vietnam. Well, that's his country. That wouldn't influence him, would he? Lived with 14 people in a 3-bedroom house. No, I don't think that would have influenced their decision to leave because even though it was crowded, he said there's always lots of people to play with. So he actually enjoyed living with so many people. I didn't know there was a war going on outside our house. Many people were dying. Mothers, fathers, and some were even children. So I think the war influenced the decision. Yeah, the war. War. People dying. Yeah. So what did they do then? They decided to leave, didn't they? They decided to leave the country. And it didn't look like much fun. I wonder, I was terrified, but my mum hugged me tight and told me everything will be okay. Don't worry, it will be okay. Finally the storm passed and the sun came out again. Mum and Dad stood together looking at all the food and the water that had been ruined. At least we are still alive, said Mum. Mum sounds very supportive, doesn't she? So even though they were in a really tough time, Mum said it's going to be okay. You know, it's going to be okay. We're doing the right thing. And even though the food and the water was ruined, at least we're alive. So could we say that Mum has had, can we predict that Mum has had an influence on Anh Do's life? I think we can. Yeah, I think we can. So we'll start there. So how was the subject influenced? So if we have war and people dying, so how was Anh Do influenced like that? He was only a little boy. He couldn't make the decision. But he has to do what he's told, doesn't he? So the fact that they had to leave their country as a refugee, that's an influence on him, isn't he? Because he got taken out of his country. So we can put leave his country. And Mum, how was it? Can we predict how he was influenced by Mum? I think we can. I think we can predict that Mum was very supportive and made him feel comfortable, and that they were doing the right thing, even though he was so scared. Yeah. So we can put comfort, love. What about resilience? Yeah, well, they're all pretty good ones, I think. So we're up to page where he's waving his gun. So this is the page we're up to, and we're going to pick this up again tomorrow, and we're going to add some more to our chart, okay? Your task for today is you will see on Seesaw and in the hard pack if you've got one, there is a reading for you to read today as well, okay? It is on Anne Frank. I would like you to read Anne Frank, yeah? So read the reading that you have, and then use a highlighter to highlight what you think are the significant events in Anne Frank's life, okay? And then we will put Anne Frank down here. And in your responses on, then as we go through the week, we will add what we think about Anne Frank, you know, who or what influenced Anne Frank, and then how was Anne Frank influenced by those influences, okay? That didn't make sense, did it? How was Anne Frank influenced by the influences? Oh my God, Nick, or Mr. L, you need to have a lay down. So we're going to have Anne Frank, who or what influenced, so what significant events influenced Anne Frank, and how was Anne Frank influenced, okay? What was the change in her, and how was she influenced by them? Yeah, so it's pretty cool. It's really interesting to unpack the what and the how and the why of what has happened and how that has changed somebody's perception, or how that has made them into the person that they are. Okay? So, we good? I hope so. So, learning intention for the week, we'll just recap on that. We are learning to identify the significant events in a biography and why the subject makes the decisions they do. Our success criteria 1, I can explain why biographers decide to start and stop telling the story of a subject's life. 2, I can identify the main influences on a subject's decisions. 3, I can analyse why the author has included particular facts about the subject. All right. Any questions, let me know. This is our focus all week this week, and we'll go from there. See ya.